What is MEP in construction? First of all, MEP can be scary to those of us who didn't grow up in that trade or have a lot of education behind it. So what does it entail? How can you manage it? And what is the best approach to take? We're going to cover all those right now in this video. So MEP stands for Mechanical, Electrical, and Plumbing in Construction. Mechanical systems include heating, ventilation, air conditioning, and other components that relate to climate control. The systems may include equipment like boilers, chillers, air handlers, fans, and ductwork. So that's typically how I like to think about it. Electrical systems provide power distribution, lighting, and communication infrastructure throughout the building. This includes wiring, outlets, switches, circuit breakers, light fixtures, emergency lighting, fire alarm systems, security systems, and data networking infrastructure. Electrical systems make sure that you have reliable access to electricity for lighting, appliances, equipment, and other electrical loads. Plumbing systems consist of piping, fixtures, and equipment that facilitate the distribution of water, as well as the collection and disposal of wastewater within a building. This includes domestic water supply systems, sanitary drainage systems, stormwater drainage systems, and plumbing fixtures such as sinks, toilets, showers, and water heaters. Plumbing systems also include things like pumps, valves, water meters, and backflow preventers. Overall, MEP systems are fundamental elements of modern buildings, providing the infrastructure necessary for comfortable, safe, and functional living and working environments. So you probably knew most of that, but I really like to remember those key concepts when I'm thinking about MEP. And so when you're looking at your design, you'll see your civil drawings, your structural drawings, your architectural drawings. Then you'll have your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, IT drawings that are part of the overall package, and you're going to want to get familiar with those. But again, like I said, this whole world of MEP is scary because it's not just rebar and concrete, rebar and concrete, rebar and concrete, right? It's complex systems, complex devices, different types of math, loads, pressures, flows. It's really quite a complex network of systems that come together to form your MEP backbone. And so I like to change my mindset a little bit. Instead of thinking of the building and areas or components, I like to think of them as systems. And I think you should, or you would do well to do that as well. For instance, like when I'm thinking about a building, I know that you have a substation or a chilled water plant or whatever infrastructure inside the city, and then that's going to feed power and domestic water and fire water and gas and all of these other systems infrastructure, these utilities to the project site. I know it's got to come in through the basement or basically the entry point. For the electrical room, that'll be the service entry section. For mechanical, it'll be the mechanical room. It'll be the fire riser room or the fire pump room. It will be, your plumbing room. It'll be any of these base mechanical rooms. And then I know that duct and hydronic piping have got to, and electrical feeders and structural cabling have got to make their way up the building to the equipment, to things like your central plant or your air handlers. Then that's going to blow air into the building and then back out through exhaust fans. All of this has got to talk to each other. It's got to talk to thermostats. It's got to talk floor to floor and up through the floors, and it's all got to connect to the building automation system online. That's all interconnected. So thinking of it as systems, I could just say, oh, we're going to build level 1 MEP, level 2 MEP. Except for just like general things like duct and piping, that very rarely works. Think of it like systems. In addition to systems, think of the interconnections. How do things connect together, right? So your domestic water will come in and probably branch out to do your domestic water, your fire water, and your irrigation on site, right? So there's an interface right there. Then your domestic water is going to branch out and be actual drinking water, and then feed into your chilled water and heating hot water systems, which then feed up and interconnect with the air handler to provide heating hot water or chilled water so that you can heat or cool the air, right? There's another intersection or connection. So everything is tied together as systems and connections between systems. And if you start to look at it like that, you can start to grasp how it's installed, how the system works, and how you're going to commission it. And so as you get started, I really want you to have some tips and tricks, because I remember being an MEP superintendent on a project and having a great time with it, actually, because we had really great trade partners and really great foremen, and I learned a lot. So let me give you my tips and tricks so that you can manage what is MEP in construction. Number one, learn the language of the drawings. If you really want to know what your mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems are in the building, get familiar with the drawings, step one. Step two, focus on the one-line diagrams, the single-line diagrams, the flow diagrams, the schematics that show how the systems tie together. You'll be able to think that way and actually highlight them and use them for planning and scheduling so that you can install them the way the system assembles according to those drawings. Number three, and this is the best part, you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, these drawings are super intimidating. Well, step number three is ask a lot of questions. Get familiar with your foreman and with the trade partners and start asking as many questions as you possibly can to learn the systems. Four, understand how things go together and start to establish patterns, right? So for me, I'm not an expert, right? I don't have the slightest idea what I'm doing with mechanical and electrical and plumbing, but I know for a fact every floor you build, right? We do our overhead, we do our in-wall, then we install equipment, then we connect power, then we connect controls, the dry side, the wet side. We are going to make sure that that piece of equipment is able to be energized. We're going to do the manufacturer startup. We're going to start pre-functional checklist. Then you do your dry side, wet side connections. You do your point to point, and then you connect all the floor together. Then it can connect to an overall point to point and commissioning process for the whole building. Then you can start to do test and balance, right? So you start to learn patterns. You're like, okay, this is what has to happen in the floor. This is what has to happen with the electrical rooms. This is what has to happen with the chases. This is when we need to connect the underground utilities. So start looking for patterns. One of the best ways to do this is to do an overall milestone pull, or a milestone pull plan, where you look at the systems generally and you interconnect it in a sequence for how it's going to get installed with the trade partners. It's super scary, but once you have that backbone put together, you're going to be jamming and you're going to have a high level understanding of how to build that building. Number six, like I said, track progress by the system, not by location. I wouldn't do it floor by floor. I literally would get out those flow diagrams and those one-line diagrams, and that's what I did actually on the first project where I was doing this, would be to schedule dates for different segments and pieces of equipment and how they tie together, and then highlight them as they're installed. And when you're ready to actually do the startup and the commissioning for the systems, and you will be tracking it by system and connection and intersection, and you will not get lost in the geography of the building, and you'll really be able to orchestrate a nice sequence that will get you to the finish line faster. 7, within those smaller segments, do detailed pull plans. 8, do a detailed testing and commissioning pull plan at the end so that you know you have the right path to get to your tests, your sign-offs, your fire life safety walks, and your preliminary balancing report. One thing that I would always say, move commissioning sooner by at least 6 weeks. I'll link you in the description below to a video on that as well if you need help. And just know you don't need an MEP super. You can have one if you want, but every super should know this. MEP and commissioning well enough to run a building. Rely on your trades, follow the system that I've outlined for you, and you'll be fine. Dig in and don't be afraid. And one thing that I want to leave you with, in addition to that other video, is a link to our services at LeanTakt. When we do scheduling, not only do we do macro and norm level TAC planning, we do CPM, last planner, and Scrum, but we are also experts at weaving in the MEP portions of the schedule and planning out your commissioning, especially at the end when it matters most. So give us a call, comment there below in this video if you need our help. We do this all the time. There's no reason that you can't be highly successful with MEP in construction. On we go.